I hate to continue to be morbid, but there was another famous death in Puerto Rico. I don't know why. Maybe it's just it happens that way. But Eddie Gilbert.
Eddie, yes.
It was February 18th, 1995. I was the last person that he worked for in the United States, because I've told the story before, but Eddie was on the outs with the Memphis office, and he was in Lexington, Tennessee, West Tennessee, and he wasn't wrestling for anybody at all. Sure. And I heard about it, and I was running Smoky Mountain in Knoxville, other end of the state, and I got his number, and I called him one day. I said, Eddie, he said, well, yeah, I was going to do something else. I said, you love the wrestling business. I said, we need talent over here, because I'd lost the Heavenly Bodies to the WWF. I wasn't going to stand in their way of, full-time job and et cetera. And I said, I'd love to have a heel team, and I've got this guy, Glenn Jacobs, that Dutch Mantell had recommended. So I got a kid, he's from Missouri, he needs to get the fuck out of Puerto Rico. He wants to go home, because everybody gets homesick sooner or later down there. Yeah. And I said, I want to do the big man, little man, the little guy cuts the promo with the big mouth, and the big guy, is the cleanup guy. And Eddie, you'd be perfect for it. Exactly. But plus, you've got a great mind, and if we can draw some money or do something over here, Tennessee wrestling, I don't care who gets credit for it. Give me your input, you or anybody else, whatever. So come over and do the TV. And he did our January taping. We taped 4 shows that night, and he cut the promos, had the matches. It was great. And he was supposed to debut, I remember it was January 28th in Knoxville, because it was our Super Saturday Night Fever. It was the night before the Super Bowl. And I was going to put the belts on him, et cetera, et cetera. So they did the TV the first week of January, and then I didn't hear from him for a couple weeks, and I thought, well, I need to call Eddie, make sure he knows what we're doing, the time of the show, et cetera, come early for promos. I called, and Tommy answered the phone. I said, Tommy, is Eddie there? He said, no. I'd heard Eddie made a shot in Puerto Rico and had worked there, but I thought, well, he's gone down, in the middle of the month or whatever. I said, well, I heard he was in Puerto Rico. When's he get back? He said, I don't rightly know when he's going to get back. I said, Tommy, he's coming back, isn't he? And Tommy's like, well, I think you probably ought to talk to Eddie. I'll tell him you called. I'm like, oh boy, I ain't never gonna see Eddie Gilbert again as far as this angle goes here, because they gave him the book again. And Eddie always, and I, long time I'm not mad, but at the time I was like, fuck.
You have already your story there.
It's booked. The tapes are running, et cetera, et cetera. You've been there. But more importantly, it was 3 weeks later that I hear he was dead, and I thought if they hadn't made that phone call and offered him the book or whatever, and if he'd have just stayed here and come to Knoxville and been, 4-hour drive from home or whatever, and it just. So I obviously I was mad for a couple weeks. Okay, I was mad for a couple weeks, but after that happened, obviously I wasn't mad.
Like, what the heck?
That gave Al Snow his break, because I said, okay, I got to have a little Weasley guy that can cut a promo, and we'd been looking at Al anyway, because he'd worked a couple shows, up in the north end of the territory. So Al filled the Eddie Gilbert spot with Glenn, but I know Ken Wayne and a couple other guys. Ken had just got down there. Like the week before, Eddie asked him to come down and work, and they're the ones that ended up finding him, because, we were supposed to meet him early in the morning. Ken was knocking on the door, so he goes and fucks around, does something else, comes back, knocks, no answer. Finally, they crawled in the bathroom window. He'd had a heart attack, and everybody knows that Eddie had issues because of the car wreck that he'd had 15 years beforehand with painkillers, but he was clear and bright when Ken saw him, and there was no issue with that. But what it had done to his heart, in the wreck, he'd hit the steering wheel chest first. But he was a month older than I was. Wow. And so once again, Puerto Rico, how did that affect the guys there? They've already been through the Brody thing, even though it had been 7 years. How did that affect the guys there? Yeah.
When it happened at like a dead outside of the ring or something like that, well, it happened. Yeah. And that don't hit hard.
It wasn't as shocking as it happening in the locker room, and
because wasn't that the news don't cover that, like, oh my God, this happened. You know? But don't affect too much. Don't. I remember Eddie when I was visiting the wrestling before, when he come with his dad, Tommy. Was Tommy and Eddie Gilbert.
Tommy had worked in the 70s down there, and it had gotten over tremendously.
I remember saw them. And what they plugged big time was the kid and the dad. Then Eddie come with like a baseball hat on, you know, like he's the kid, you know, and he's short and have water matches with the big guys from the States. And they love that Americans. Oh, these guys, they're good guys, no?
And Eddie actually, but the first time he went down there with Tommy, he was 18 years old because he wasn't allowed to wrestle for the Memphis territory until he turned 18 because of the Kentucky Commission. Yeah. So he'd actually, at 17, he'd gone over to that outlaw group in Malden, Missouri, near Memphis, and he'd gotten a little experience. So when all of a sudden, as soon as he turns 18, and he debuts in Memphis, he already knew what he was doing. And then they go down to Puerto Rico, and you know, he's been in the business 6 months, 9 months or whatever, and he already knows exactly what he's doing. By that time,
the people bought everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to do crazy move or crazy jumps or whatever, just basic wrestling. And the people hook on that. I remember work with him in Louisiana for Watts. We did the angle, I was the El Colsario with the flam, the gimmick with the terrorists. And I put the Cobra Clutch on him. He's supposed to bleed. Yeah. And he got the condom and he sprayed it out. And we are fighting to cover it. That was on TV. Then
that backfired as often as it worked. Either guy swallowed the thing whole, or he's trying to chew it. I've seen guys try to bite it, and it would mash. You don't know what we're talking about. In those days, there was no such thing as fake blood in wrestling, and I know everybody thought, okay. Yeah. I never saw fake blood in wrestling until the WWF or WWE has done it. What you would do is, if you needed to bleed from the mouth, you would get a syringe, and you'd draw your own blood in the locker room, and then you would shoot it into a condom, and you'd tie it off, and you'd put it in a bucket of warm water so it wouldn't clot. And when the time came, we did the same thing with the Midnight in the Rock and Roll. When Ricky Morton got hit in the throat with the racket, I had it in my hand, and as soon as we did the deal, I went to pick him up and slipped it in, and he bites the rubber, and he bleeds his own blood, but it's real blood coming from his mouth. And nobody ever knew, but in some cases, either they can't bite through it, or
they have to bite and squeeze it.
Yeah, squeeze it down, or it spits out, or they swallow the whole thing, and then they're really choking.
We are in Shreveport doing the TV. Yeah. And here come and put the Cobra Clutch on Eddie, and we shaking it, and he's supposed to get the bleed, and you see the condom go, and I let go him. He just almost died, and he just wake up and tried both are trying to grab the condom.
That was one thing. Also the goddamn the Alka-Seltzer. Oh, we did that in Ring of Honor with the guy, and I can't remember who it was. I don't want to embarrass him anyway, but they'd never heard of any of this. The new guys, they don't know, but they actually hit each other with bottles over the head and break them for real instead of baking them first, and they don't know how to break the boards and everything. But they put the guy had such cotton mouth because he'd been going for a while and he was real dry, and then they put a half Alka-Seltzer in and fucking looked like a fire hose.
No, I'm telling you, and Eddie was a good people. You was more time with him than me. And the time that I was with him, he's good people. I wasn't with Carlos when that happened. I was going outside with different companies.
I think you had started up north at that point, and for Vince, I think
maybe. What year? No, I'm in Puerto Rico.
You came in '95, right?
94. I did '94 to try out. Then 94. Same '94. At the end of the year, they bring me. Then I start full '95.
That's right.
Yes.
But yeah, I met Eddie when he was 15 because he was the photographer down at the Memphis Inn.
Good people.
I was in Louisville, and the first time he came up to Louisville, summer vacation with Tommy. Yeah. And we talked, and he said, I'm going to be a wrestler. And, boom, he was. But
I remember telling you, saw him in Puerto Rico when I was a kid, then have the chance to work with him. And, wow, it's people that we need these days.